Welcome to Curtis Ghost Corner, coming to you from a secret underground base in occupied America. Columbia rabbi tells Jewish students to leave the campus, warns that school, the NYPD, cannot guarantee your safety. This is Columbia University in New York City, which has a very large concentration of Jews. Columbia president faces call to immediately resign as university leadership clearly lost control of its campus. Before we get into this story, I want to say this. I don't care if you hate Donald Trump's guts or you love him or you're somewhere in between. None of this would be going on in the Middle East. The Gaza-Israeli conflict, Hamas-Israeli conflict is more accurate. These protests and around the country and around the world, if Donald Trump had won the election, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind, I would bet every cent I have, and I would borrow money and bet it, that wouldn't happen. That being said, Biden voters, look internally, stand in front of the mirror in your bathroom, whatever it is, and ask yourself, are you going to vote for Biden again? Let's read on. The Columbia Orthodox rabbi at Columbia University in Barnard College sent a message recommending Jewish students leave campus and go home as anti-Israel agitators had continued an encampment on campus and participants were caught on camera espousing full-on support for terrorism, supporting violence toward Jewish students. Now, that's the amazing part to me, is over the last few years, places like Columbia, and I have to say, in all fairness, conservative people in the university system 20 years ago allowed this to fester and happen. Now we're on the second generation of these brainwashed, overpriced colleges have cranked out hundreds of thousands of progressive leftists who are racists. It's just really that simple. I never thought, as you're going to see in the article comment later, some of the things they say out loud in protests in America. Yeah, there's always a handful of asshats, the 8 or 10, but these are tens of thousands, and they're all over the country, in the world for that matter. I never thought I would see this again. And a WhatsApp message to hundreds of, before the start of Passover, Rabbi Eli Butchler, director of OULCIC at Columbia Barnard, told students to leave as soon as possible until the situation improves, noting that we are witnessing in and around the campus is tragic and terrible. Now, think about this for a minute. These are the same asshats, students that are going $200,000, $300,000 in college debt that want us to pay their tuition. At the same time, they're protesting, doing this monstrous stuff. And the faculty stay silent. Why? Because they agree. It's amazing to me how people like Michael Knowles from the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro for that matter, and others, when they come to speak, they're like, oh, these microaggressions, they really hurt people, and their silence is violence, and oh my gosh, clutch your pearls. And meanwhile, they can say some of the most horrible and threatening things, and it's called free speech. The double standard has to stop. It's about time. Arrest them all. Put them all in jail. I don't care if it overflows the court system. Fine them all $5,000, trespassing, all kinds of other charges I'm sure that they've done, and give them 60 days in jail. Period. We'll see how they come around, but they won't, because law enforcement in the court system in these big cities, especially the court system, is cowardly. Look at all the officers that stood around the court every time President Trump comes in. And they threatened him with arrest. They threatened him in contempt of court and go to jail. Without that law enforcement reinforcing these progressives, if the law enforcement just says, you know what, This is crazy. We're not doing this anymore. And walk away. These progressives lose their authority. They lose their power. They become impotent. In Atlanta, in New York, and all the places where especially Trump is going to be on trial. They took an oath, just like I did when I was a councilman, to uphold the Constitution. Let's read on. The events of the last few days, especially last night, have made it clear that Columbia University's public safety and the NYPD cannot guarantee Jewish students' safety in the face of extreme anti-Semitism and anarchy. And you're going to see later some of the things they chant just aren't slogans. It deeply pains me to say that I would recommend you return home as soon as possible and remain home until the reality in and around our campus has dramatically improved. And most of these students probably live in the New York City metro area. The rabbi added, it is not our job as Jews to ensure our own safety on campus. No one should have to endure this level of hatred, let alone at school. House Chair Elise Stefanik, who is just north and east of me, I'm in upstate New York, she's in the Adirondacks, I'm on the southern tier below Syracuse. I was hot and cold on her at the beginning. I'm starting to warm up to her. She also went to Harvard, by the way. Said on Sunday, demanded Columbia University President Chef Eck resign, given how Columbia's leadership has clearly lost control of its campus. There's a big green space in the middle of the campus that you can protest there. And the rules are, during the week, you can protest from 12 noon to 6 p.m. Well, they had set up tents. Well, they made them take down the tents, but they stayed overnight anyway. And none of them were cleared out. The rules don't apply if you're a progressive leftist protesting. But say one thing wrong, drop a gum wrap around the ground, and if you're a conservative, you'll be pushed out. This is what happens when people are coddled and they were given on the good end of a double standard. Stefanik said Columbia's leadership hours of preparation for their testimony before the House Education and Workforce Committee hearing last week clearly was an attempt to cover up for their abject failure to enforce their own campus rules and protect Jewish students. Yeah, the NYPD arrested over 100 people. One was Ilhan Omar's daughter, and how proud she was. Meanwhile, she's with people that love to say death to America in America. The anti-Israel encampment on the Locke campus has remained as police officers look on from across the gates. Why give the order? Clear the grounds. If you have to do it one person at a time, then do it one person at a time. Videos circulating online appear to pass the threshold of simply supporting the boycott, which I have no problem. If you want to do that, I think you're wrong, but you have a right here in this country, a divestment and sanctions against Israel. I think you're stupid, but this is beyond that. As speakers described the Columbian cabinet as a training ground for fighters and have praised, mind you, praised the October 7th attacks on Israel when Hamas militants slaughtered nearly 1,200 Jews and took over 240 hostages. Beyond free Palestine demonstrators, chants have now included, Agazam, you make us proud, kill another soldier now. We say justice, you say how, burn Tel Aviv to the ground. And Hamas, we love you. We support your rockets, too. I never thought I would see this in this country again at this scale. Yeah, there's always a few handfuls of asshats. And for years, they've mostly been neo-Nazis that have been doing this. Well, maybe all along. The Democrats, the progressive end of the Democrats have always been Nazis. Maybe that's true. It's like we've been saying as conservative people for years. They're the real racist. They're the hate mongers. And everybody says, yeah. Look at these morons. And what I tell you is an agitator was seen holding a sign that said, pick your next targets, and pointing toward a group of Jewish students who were singing while waving the Israeli flag. The Al-Qassam Brigade is the military wing of Hamas. Another video showed demonstrators shouting at Jewish students leaving campus, "Go back to Europe. All you do is colonize." Well, how about you go back? How about you back where you came from? Unless you're a Native American, you're not from here, get the F out. I never thought I would see so blatantly. Ben Shapiro has a good point here. Ben Shapiro, host of the Ben Shapiro Show podcast and a frequent speaker at campuses around the country, decried how universities have spent literally years telling conservatives on campus to shut up. They might microaggress the sensibilities of far less students by saying that boys can't be girls and the like. They've completely gone off the cliff. Oh my God, you're speaking words. You're saying that. You're saying that boys can't be girls, and that's a microaggression. And unless you use the proper pronouns, or if you have a demonstration or a club that's pro-Jewish, you're going to offend our sensibilities because we're so fragile and we're so weak that we can't take somebody else giving a different opinion, so you have to leave. But they can do this. They can say this. They can say these horrible things. He spent those same years coddling radical leftists who actually undermine the actual functioning of the universities. Yeah, and the faculty there has made it so. Making huge amounts of money, putting all these students in a tremendous burden of debt for the rest of their lives that they can't pay back, and now they want us to pay it. It's almost like Stockholm Syndrome, where these students are getting ripped off financially and bled dry financially by the same people that they align with. That's Stockholm Syndrome. Columbia's latest protests weren't designed to be peaceful. They were designed to intimidate and harass, Shapiro said. He described how the latest protests featuring pro-Hamas activists cheering October 7th, pledging a new October 7th every day and screaming, "We are Hamas." This is beyond a protest. Columbia has no obligation to coddle terrorist supporters who harass students and obstruct the functioning of universities, Shapiro said. Columbia spent months doing so after October 7th. There's already a lawsuit alleging that Jewish and Israeli students have been physically assaulted, spat at, threatened, and subject to relentless intimidation and vilification. That's not counting what their grades from these same professors. A Jewish professor at Columbia who went viral in October for calling out the students in action on anti-Semitism demanded the National Guard be brought in if the NYPD cannot take action. Clear them out. Shevik needs to open the gates of the university. NYPD needs to come in and disperse the crowd and arrest everyone who refuses and keep them in jail. And if the NYPD cannot do this, we need a National Guard, he said, and he told Fox News Digital. With all the fraught history the National Guard has had on U.S. campuses, if Columbia can't keep the Jewish students safe, and if the police can't continue to keep Jewish students safe, then the National Guard must, because it is the civil right. This is a civil rights issue. This is not about the war in Israel. This is a Jewish civil rights issue. I couldn't agree more. Give them all 60 days and a $5,000 fine. This is a hostile takeover of the university yet. It's a showdown of support for Hamas on one hand and Western civilization on the other, which the faculty and the administration in these colleges, in this case Columbia, have held for years, decades. The showdown is happening on Columbia's campus. At a congressional hearing Wednesday, the House Republicans grilled Shevik on what consequences Columbia professors, and they list the names there, face for celebrating October 7th. The university president vowed Abdu would never work at Columbia again, but gave unclear testimony on whether Mossad was reprimanded by his dean about his comments or was removed as chair of the committee. Nothing. Professor Joseph Mossad described Hamas's October 7th terror attack on Israel as a resistance offense designed to fight racism toward Palestinians. Shapiro told Fox News Digital. Professor Catherine Frank said all Israeli students who served in the IDF, that's the Israeli Defense Force, are dangerous and shouldn't be on campus. Professor Mohammed Abdo posted on social media October 11th, I'm with Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Islamic Jihad. It's too bad that Columbia decided to bend over backwards to accommodate its pro-Hamas radicals until now. The very first moment, these protests were about justifying sexual assault as a means to a goal, he said, referring to October 7th Hamas terror attack. This is not about human rights. Oh, unbelievable. David I. is requesting Columbia leadership approve a police escort on Monday to peacefully sit at the center of the encampment. They want to counter-protest, and they have just as much right as these pieces of crap. Telling Fox Digital, we're going to engage with the other side, but we need protection. And I'm going to be there, and if I get to the protection or I don't get the protection or whatever happens is the responsibility of Columbia University. Well, good for you. Good for you. I hope there's hundreds. Do I hope for a physical confrontation and violence? No. That's all these progressives know. Violence, violence, violence. Hatred, anti-Semitism. I never thought I would see it here. It's always going to be your small percent of asshats that are anti-Semites. Conservative people like myself and many others have been saying for years, the base of the Democrat Party is racist. And it has been for a very, very long time. And I used to be a local elected official as a Democrat. I left the party over a decade ago, and I should have done it long before that. But the argument I was given here locally was, well, John, you're right. The Democrats coming up now are the progressive lunatic type that are racist, that are anti-Semites. And you can't help save the party here locally if you're not part of it. So I said, okay, and I stuck around for longer than I should have, trying to stop this. Just the local city council here where I live in upstate New York, that I used to be a member of, and I was also a council president at one time. Just passed a unanimous vote of 7-0 for a ceasefire. One's a Republican, but he was appointed by the other Democrats. That's a long story. I'll tell you some other time, and I call him an undocumented Democrat. They're saying it out in the open now. They're not even trying to mince words or hide it. This is the real Democrat Party. And it has been for a very long time. Not every single person that votes Democrat is like this, of course. But the base, the part of the party that really runs things, the base that Joe Biden is desperately trying to keep, he's trying to be anti-Israel and pro-Israel at the same time. He needs that base, or he has zero chances of winning. Zero. It's amazing to me how he even placate these people. How about you give up your presidency and do something about these pieces of garbage? And I'm being kind saying pieces of garbage because this channel has been scrutinized and suppressed, and I can't use the language that I really want to use. I know this video is going a little bit longer than normal, but this is important. This is not an isolated incident. This is all over the country. And like most things, I use the analogy when people are looting department stores and filling up bags, and we'll say that's the Democrats. And the people standing around with cell phones filming you are the Republicans. They're saying, well, you know, somebody ought to do something about this. Somebody ought to do something about this. It's amazing how much police protection they can surround and threaten a former president, but you can break the law. It's a two-tiered system. The law only applies to people we don't like. F you if we break the law because we're righteous. And anything is okay in the goal of justice, even breaking the law. But if the other side does it, even a minute amount, they're the criminals. It has to stop. It has to stop now. Arrest them all. Give them 60 days. and a $5,000 fine, or let them all go to trial. Let them back up the court system for 5 years. I don't care. It has to stop. And I wish God's blessing on the Jews that are going to counter-protest, that nothing happens to them. They have every right. Hopefully God will be looking over them. What do you think? Until the next time, God bless, goodbye, and good luck. We're going to need it.